Welcome to week 7, aka Bipocalypse of the Half Point Per Podcast. I am your host, Evan Riggs, joined by co-host Dalton Willie. Dalton, are you able to actually put together a full lineup in your leagues that you're in this week, or where we stand here in the Bipocalypse?
Well, I mean, what is a full lineup? What exactly does that look like? Because is Tyson Williams and Jamal Williams is my RB1 and 2 a full lineup? Some would say no. Some might say it is.
Some would say you're pretty lucky that Latavius Murray is hurt. Otherwise, yeah, it'd be pretty rough. It still is pretty rough, but yeah.
It's I mean, is it ideal? No. But we're gonna hope that Baltimore has every running back score a touchdown this week again, and that somehow the Lions keep it a close game and rush the ball with Jamal Williams against the 5-1 LA Rams.
So we're gonna start with our starts and sits of the week. As you said, it's really hard to tell anybody to sit anybody this week because it's like if you have a warm body, there's a good chance you have to put them out there, especially at running back this week, but even receiver too, just depending on where you're at with injuries, because there's just so many teams on bye week, and more importantly, it's like the teams with a lot of fantasy starters are on bye week this week. So it's definitely rough out there. But with that said, Dalton, if you have Kenyon Drake, I'm still sitting him this week. Unless you're in a situation like you're in where you really wanted to start Ramondre Stevenson, and now he's inactive an hour before kickoff. Here's the thing with Drake. I know he had 2 touchdowns last week. He only played 11 snaps. So he did not play hardly at all last week. The box score kind of hid the warts in the actual workload. And I think we're setting up for a nice Josh Jacobs game against the Eagles this week. I thought about him in DraftKings, and I did actually make a play on that in Underdog. We can talk about that here in a little bit. What do you think about Kenyon Drake this week?
I agree. I mean, it's been so hit or miss with what they're doing anyways with their running back situation, but the snaps have been there for Josh Jacobs. Last week, he looked like a fade, and then he ended up being a really strong play on the slate. So I think he's definitely somebody worth starting.
Yeah. So who?
Or worth sitting, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jacobs worth starting. Kenyon Drake's worth sitting.
Yep, for sure. Okay. So who, if anybody in the entire NFL, could you pick to sit this week?
Well, and this is matchup aside, because I know we always pick on the Buccaneers matchup, but I'm sitting Damian Williams and Khalil Herbert if I can.
See, that's just rough. I think, don't you think most people, if they have them, probably have to start those 2 guys just based on their production the last 2 weeks?
It's just going to be a weird mismatch of I don't know who's going to have control of that backfield because Herbert played so well.
So here's the name: Michael Carter, or either Bears guy. Like Carter is kind of like
it's week 7, and that's where we're at with our decision making.
Yeah, Carter's like a low tier, like bye week fill in, I would say. And then those 2 guys have both produced, but like I know you were about to get at before I interrupted, it's hard to know who's going to get what today.
I might go with Carter. We do know that Coleman is inactive for the Jets as well. So I really think it's going to be a 2-headed backfield, and it's not like the Patriots are world beaters this year. So hopefully, as long as Zach Wilson,
but the Jets are also not world beaters this year.
As long as Zach Wilson can hold on to the ball, they should be able to keep themselves in a positive enough game script to use Michael Carter. While I just don't know what the offense is going to look like for the Bears this week, especially on the ground.
I think I would go with Carter over Damian Williams, but I think I'd go Khalil Herbert top of those 3. I just feel like even when Damian was playing, like Herbert outrushed him, Damian outtouched him, and with him only being deemed active yesterday, I think it's hard to know what to expect from him. I think Khalil Herbert is at least the safest of those 3. I don't know. It's just so bad this week. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. I do think if I have Khalil Herbert, depending on my team, it's hard to get away from him this week.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to do.
It's hard to get away from a lot of guys this week. Let's be
I mean,
clear.
I can't get away from Tyson Williams, who's active for the first time in like 3 weeks. So we're all somewhere we don't want to be.
Yeah, that is definitely a great way to describe this week. We are all somewhere we don't want to be. Where I do want to be, though, Dalton, is with Darrell Henderson in my lineup. He's my star of the week this week. They played the Lions, the worst rush defense in the NFL, one of the worst teams in the NFL. We saw what Joe Mixon did against them last week. I expect it to be a lot like the Giants game for the Rams this week, too, where they're in a very positive game script and Henderson can kind of run up a little bit before it gets too out of hand where even, Sony Michel is getting the bulk of the carries. But I think Henderson's going to get his before it gets too out of hand in that game.
Yeah, I like that start of the week a lot. He's probably going to eat, and it's going to be a pretty good game. Maybe the Lions keep it close. I don't know. There was some talk, Dan Campbell saying Jared Goff needs to do more, and there's a little bit of a revenge narrative going on here. I did take the under.
There is a revenge narrative here. That is true.
No, I did take the under of 262 passing yards for Jared Goff.
How about Stafford? The Stafford revenge game too. Other way, are we taking the over on Stafford's line? I don't know what it is.
I don't even know I don't think he had one last I looked, but I'll probably take the over as long as it's not something egregious like 310 yards.
I gotta say, Underdog they're getting sneaky with some of the lines they're not posting that would be like home run. Like we had the one against the Bucks where it's like a couple weeks the Eagles backs where it's like I couldn't even bet on their second back. I can never think of his name off the top of my head. Good Lord. I couldn't even think of I couldn't even bet Gainwell's receiving yards in that game because they knew that would be a slam dunk. And I literally, as I was placing my bets this morning, watched Ramondre Stevenson's line disappear off of my screen like right after he was inactive. It's like I was so close to getting a Stevenson under 26.5 rushing yards.
Well, they also had AJ Brown 62.5 receiving yards, which was a slam dunk.
And I bet that one. That one.
As I was betting it, it got removed. So I didn't get to bet it, which is just horse.
Oh, you know what? I didn't bet that one. I had it. I think I had it, and it probably got removed before I submitted my bet. I think I remember that now.
Oh, that's tough. But going on to my start of the week, we hinted at it at the top of the show, but Ramondre Stevenson's inactive. Damian Harris is just going to eat. I was reading on Twitter, it looks like one of the reasons Ramondre Stevenson's inactive is because the Jets run a cover 3, and apparently that does really well against receiving backs. Getting into the weeds there, but Brandon Bolden and JJ Taylor, the other two backs that are active for the Patriots today. Brandon Bolden ran a low of like 7 pass routes last week, and JJ Taylor is just he's not a starting back. So Damian Harris is going to eat against a very, very porous Jets defense. And I think they're just going to keep the rock on the ground as much as they can.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm fine with the Damian Harris call. A place where I don't want to be is thinking about either Brandon Bolden or JJ Taylor for sure. But yeah,
I was there this morning, if you were curious.
Oh, man. All right. We going DraftKings or we going Underdog here? Both a little more cheery than start and sit of the week this week. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with Underdog, and I'll do my QB pick'em of the week. So this is 5 picks. You can do 5 picks for $5 for $100. Joe Burrow, I have the over on pass yards, 260.5 against Baltimore. I think last week was not indicative of where their defense has been at all year. They just played really well, and they just had the Chargers number. Going up next, I have the over on Aaron Rodgers pass yards, 266.5. He plays Washington. They're one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, and I do think that the game's going to stay close enough that he's going to have to throw. Next,
see that would be the concern. Green Bay likes to run up and keep throwing anyway, but the concern would be game script would play against you there.
Yeah, I think I was reading about it too, and Heineke seems to have like an ideal matchup with the way the Packers play defense. So I'm hoping they can make it look competitive on paper.
Is any matchup really ideal for Tyler Heineke? I mean, he couldn't even do anything. I know the Chiefs defense played better last week, but it's like, you should be able to produce in that spot.
Well, we had Daniel Sorensen off the field a little less, so the easy target wasn't there. Next, I have Lamar Jackson's over for 305.5 total yards. Cincinnati's defense has looked better, but Lamar Jackson has just looked like an MVP candidate. I think combining his rushing pass yards for over 305 is pretty big gimme.
See, I thought about that one too, but again, kind of like with Rodgers, the potential, because it just seems like I know the Bengals are better this year, but would it shock you if the final of this game was like 31-14?
No,
Ravens.
not at all.
And if that happens, I'm just a little bit worried that they just are like, okay, let's just hand it to the running backs for like a quarter and a half to run this one out. I could see that happening, and that's what scared me off.
Yeah, and it did, but I just think the Bengals offense can keep them in the game. That's also why the Burrow over is bet on this.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming up next, I have the highest pass yardage total on the slate. I'm betting the over on Mahomes for 325.5. The reason for that is because he's the only way we win the game, and he's going to have to throw for a lot of yards and touchdowns.
Here, is that your whole slate? Is that your five?
Well, then the last one, bringing it back around to the game, Ryan Tannehill over 253 and a half passing yards because he's going to have to throw a lot too to keep up with Mahomes.
Yeah, you would think so. Okay, so I bet a Mahomes line too. Probably not the one that you're thinking. Did you by chance take a gander in the rivals section of underdog bets this morning?
I did not.
There are a couple good ones that I got here. I only did 3. I actually won my most recent football bet, really hurting from the NBA starting this week. So wanted to hopefully get right to get some money back in the old account. First one, Patrick Mahomes versus Ryan Tannehill, rushing. Tannehill is plus 2.5. I bet Mahomes. Mahomes only has to have 2.5 more rushing than Tannehill. With the way that a lot of these teams are playing, the Chiefs dropping everybody back, Mahomes can pretty much run for 10 yards on most plays if he wants to, and he's been doing it lately. So I actually that was like my number one gimme bet this week. The second one, mainly just because I just felt like this was such a low line, which I didn't understand after a great week last week. Joe Mixon was 80.5 rushing and receiving. I know the Ravens are a pretty good defense, but 80.5 total yards, that feels like as low as I've seen a Mixon number this year.
Yeah, and that was one I put in one of my other lineups. It's definitely, I think it's close to a gimme. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and I just like Mixon's on the field for those plays.
And this one I did not understand at all, which means it's probably going to go the other way. But I thought this one was just baffling. Kind of back to my Josh Jacobs point to start us off. Miles Sanders versus Josh Jacobs rushing yards this week. Josh Jacobs is plus 1.5. So all he has to do is rush for 1 yard less than Miles Sanders. I know Sanders has had some like 40 and 50 yard games, but he just doesn't get more than like 7 to 10 rushes in a game. This could easily be a 20 carry Josh Jacobs type of game today. I'm baffled by that line, which means I'm going to be wrong probably, but I just don't understand it.
Yeah, well, and I bet the under of 61.5 rush yards for Sanders. So I like that line a lot.
Yeah, so we're on the same page there. And I just, if you look at Sanders' game log, it's like the guy if he got the ball 15 times, perhaps he would rush for more yards, but this will be the day that happens, but it just hasn't happened a single time yet this season for Josh Jacobs. That's not how the Eagles play.
Yeah, they just don't want to run the ball
with him. Miles Sanders, I mean. Yeah.
Do you want to hear my disgusting 2-pick play of the week?
Go for it.
The under in rush yards for Myles Gaskin of 33.5 and the under in receiving yards for Robert Tonyan at 20.5.
I had Singletary last week under like 9.5 receiving yards. I lost like on the first drive. It's like when you bet the under on number that small, you have the potential to be really bummed out really early on in the day.
As you recall from last week, I was one Kendrick Bourne broken coverage Trayvon Diggs play away from $100, where Kendrick Bourne touchdown and went over his receiving prop all in one play and one catch. He had the entire game.
I do recall. Okay, we can get DraftKings and then get out of here, so we've got time to get ready for hopefully a Chiefs win today. It's funny, you bet the over. I was nervous about the Lamar line, but I've got Lamar as my DraftKings quarterback at 7,400. He was a decent bit cheaper than I thought he was going to be this week. Lamar at 7,400, stacked him with Hollywood Brown at 5,800. Of course, the 1 week I played Hollywood Brown last week was the first time that he had 35 yards, 4 receptions after he was basically 50 or 60 and sometimes 100, 120 and a touchdown. So hoping for a bounce back, hoping for a big play this week. I've got my start of the week, Darrell Henderson, in there at 6,600. Darrell Williams, I think he's the only guy I have from that game, which is a little surprising because it's the highest over under, but 5,800. I just think that if nothing else, Darrell is a pretty strong bet for a short touchdown if they get in those situations. Like, I think there's a reason why, if you look at rankings this week, people are ranking him higher than they were ranking Clyde Edwards-Helaire the first month of the season. That's because he is now getting the workload opportunities and the running back opportunities. And I take it back. I actually do have a second guy from this game. AJ Brown next at 6,300. He felt cheap. Hopefully he's over his little Chipotle incident from last week. Still played well in the second half. And then this is a little bit of a stand in the flames type of call. The guy is 6,600. Probably won't be that if he plays well this week. And that's Calvin Ridley. They play Miami. I like the matchup. I think Ridley's got to have a big get-right game at some point, and I'm just hoping it's this week off a bye. He hasn't played for multiple weeks. He's got a great matchup. I'm curious, Dalton, what you're like, if I should be staying away from that, or if you're buying into perhaps a Ridley big game today.
I am. So I also created an entire underdog lineup just based off of establish the runs prop bets. And one thing they had is Ridley's line on underdog is 75.5, and their mean projection, so not even like one of their outliers, is 92 yards. So I think it's going to be a big game for him. I mean, this is
I'm probably going to go make a second slip in the next 20 minutes. That'll go great.
But yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, like we talked about on the buy low episode a couple weeks ago, all the indicators are there for him to be good. It's just
he literally just hasn't even played since the buy low episode. He had the personal reasons game he missed, and then they've had a bye week, so we haven't even got to see that come to fruition or not since we had that episode.
It is funny that you have two guys who are like top of the buy low air yards model in your lineup, both AJ Brown and Calvin Ridley.
You know what? Because those are probably AJ Brown will be a pick, I think, this week because he's playing the Chiefs. But Ridley, my logic was number one, good price. Number two, he's burned people so much this year, he's probably not going to be in a lot of lineups. I'm hoping I can maybe get an advantage there if he does go off.
Yeah. I agree with you.
And then I've got just a couple more guys here. The first, pretty self-explanatory, Dallas Goedert, the first non-Zach Ertz game, hoping he outdoes that $4,600 price tag. And then, you know what? I only had $4,600. The top guy that was left is Darnell Mooney. And, man, fantasy Twitter is telling me every week that it's Darnell Mooney breakout week. And you know what? I'm just kind of crossing my fingers on that one, hoping it's this week. And then Eagles defense, they're the worst. They're the best, cheapest defense that I could afford at 2,300, hoping for a Derek Carr pick or something along those lines.
Yeah, their defensive line has done really well all season. They're my defense as well. So I think that's a good game to target. There's going to be a lot of points scored, but turnovers can be forced, especially with Derek Carr.
And Jalen Hurts. Both quarterbacks definitely turn the ball over in that game.
And I'm not saying he's not going to play, but it sounds like their tight end, Darren Waller, is just not he's not doing well right now. And that is Derek Carr's number one target. So before I read my lineup, I went stars and scrubs. Okay.
I feel like this is an every week thing. It is. I always enjoy hearing who in the world, although again, there's a lot of disgusting options out there. You can do
there's a ton this weekend.
So go ahead.
I have Patrick Mahomes coming out as first. So, I mean, that game is going to have a ton of points scored. It's just not going to be a game. There's just no way he doesn't have to put up a ton of points for Kansas City to be competitive.
Yeah. Can I just tell you something? I think every time I put Mahomes in my DraftKings lineup, like he plays well, but I put him in so often as a Chiefs fan, and he never has like an explosion game when I play him. So I think for me, it's like a superstition thing today to not have him in my lineup.
Just to not have him. Then I played a fun game of which Baltimore running back did I want because they were all 4,400 or lower. I went with Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, and Tyson Williams were both in contention, but I think Freeman kind of has the largest share of the workload.
I think that's right. But Harbaugh, he likes to play with us. So I hope for your sake that's right.
Yeah. And then moving down the line, I mean, J.D. McKissic at $5,000 almost seems like a steal. Game script is going to be in his direction, and Antonio Gibson is just not 100%. I've seen a lot of speculation that it'd probably be best for him to not play a game or two and to come back healthy with this shin injury he has. But in the meantime, I'm going to target a cheap running back who's going to get a lot of workload.
Yeah, and it sounds like what they're doing with him is basically just maintenance all week, very little practice, so he can play in the games. But he didn't even make it through the game last week. Now, whether or not he would have kept playing if it was closer, I don't know, but he wasn't out there for basically the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah, helmet
last
off
week.
and everything. So, and there was that moment in their own 20 where he went down, that he didn't get up for a while, and it was pretty scary. So
Mhm.
I'm avoiding that. Then T. Higgins is probably the cheapest we're going to see him for a while. I think he was 4,800.
Mhm.
I know Baltimore's not an ideal matchup, but Jamar Chase has done so well against one-on-one coverage that you think that teams are going to start adjusting, and T. Higgins is going to be the prime benefactor of
Yeah,
that adjustment.
And Higgins, I thought about him. I just frankly, with Ridley, I don't want that much exposure to my dynasty lineup with both of
Yeah.
those guys. I don't want both those guys to torpedo me in two different places today if they play well. But the thing with Higgins is like he came back the first week, like it was like they kind of you could expect not a great game the first week back off the ankle injury. Last week, I think, didn't go as well as we would have hoped, but they were winning by so much that they weren't really a ton of opportunities. So I don't mind the play. I just, for my own personal sanity, could not do it this week.
Yeah.
But I get it.
And then, just like you, I mean, Darnell Mooney is cheap, and he has a lot of exposure with his quarterback, and this is a pass funnel defense.
He's probably like in every single person's lineup because everyone's probably doing the same thing we are. Well, every time I get on Twitter, Darnell Mooney, 4,600, we got to put him in there this week.
And then I just want to remind everybody, this is a Stars and Scrubs lineup. Amon St. Brown is my next wide receiver.
I don't mind that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's getting plenty of targets. It's not pretty, but he has a very low ADOT, but I'm just looking for those PPR points at this point. He's so cheap.
Mhm.
And now we get to the Stars, the fun part. Remember, I had Mahomes, then I have Travis Kelce at tight end. Again, I mean, he's the most expensive tight end on the slate for a reason. And then my flex is Tyreek Hill. Again,
Man, you're going with both of those guys.
Yeah.
See, the contrarian play to that would be, and this is almost what I did, would be the I'm a little worried that both those guys are just a little banged up right now. Maybe I can sneak a big McCall Hardman game in there for cheap, but you're not worried about that.
No, I mean, I really do think this game is going to get out of hand. The way the Titans played the Bills, I think they're a little more of a contender than a pretender, and I think that Kansas City is going to come out and play well. And the good news is I think that the Titans are going to be a little bit of shell-shocked from a full 60-minute game on Sunday night. Less rest, less turnaround. I think Kansas City comes out and has a pretty good first half, and I'll be sitting well.
Hopefully so. And then you said, and so that was your flex, right? So then it's just Eagles defense and you're done?
Yep. And then Eagles defense, and I'm done.
Well, you know what? I'm proud of you. You didn't bet a single Derrick Henry under. You didn't take the cheese on Darrell Williams, like plus 69.5 rushing yards within Derrick Henry today. So you didn't lay that evil on us as Chiefs fans. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And to anybody who thinks that Derrick Henry is chalk this week, he's not.
He's not. Why is he not chalk?
Because he's so expensive.
How much is he? I didn't even look.
I think he's like 95 or something. It's insane. But hoping this game gets out of hand quick enough that Derrick Henry is not a factor.
Yeah, somehow I'm a little bit skeptical of that. But I think that's going to do it for us today, Dalton. We will be back, I assume, on Wednesday like usual to dissect the Bipocalypse. See, I'm sure we're going to have all kinds of random guys go off today, or it could just be like the lowest scoring fantasy week of all time across the board. Really don't know what to expect this week. Looking forward to watching it, and we will talk to you guys again later this week.